Good morning. Meeting is called to order. I acknowledge Commissioners Koba, Luther, and Nemi are attending remotely today. And with that, I'll call for motion and second for approval of the minutes of the regular commission meeting of July 13th, 2022.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. I'll ask Keith for the Executive Director's report and his remarks.
Thank you, Madam President. Keith Levitt, Chief Trade and Equitable Development Officer, sitting in for Curtis, who is on vacation. I won't do as good as Antoinette did last month. Just want to welcome our new employees. Maybe if you could just put hands up. It's probably most of the audience. Great to meet all of you. Very exciting, and look forward to working with all of you into the future. I want to also, on next slide, acknowledge the Port's monthly safety champions. You can see the names up there, and I'll ask Stan Waters for the safety message.
Thanks, Keith. My message today is to highlight the Port of Portland's participation in Federal OSHA's Safe and Sound Week. Safe and Sound Week is a nationwide OSHA event held each August that recognizes the successes of workplace safety and health programs while offering information and ideas on how to keep America's workers safe. Port is one of 20 Oregon employers signed up to participate, and there are 1,600 signed up nationwide. The safe and sound emphasis areas are management leadership, find and fix hazards, workplace inspections, worker participation, along with having better safety conversations amongst employees. These emphasis areas are in complete alignment with our top-ranked safety management system indicators. Last year, we used Safe and Sound Week to promote our hazard reporting tools on Navigator and our quick response code to find and fix over 100 hazards. This year, the Port will use Safe and Sound Week tools, materials, and activity challenges to lead with safety, challenge managers to show how they lead with safety, identify a safety or health issue, and take steps to address it. We will check on safety. Finding and fixing hazards is the underlayment of great workplace safety and health programs. Challenges to identify hazards and mitigate them with proper controls. We will have eyes on safety. Workplace inspections are an important tool for identifying hazards and resolving them. Challenges to conduct safety walkarounds to get eyes on safety. And then we will be all in on safety. Worker participation is a core element of our safety and health program. It's important to create an environment where all workers feel included, heard, and respected. Competency in these crucial areas is a trait of a winning safety and health programs to ensure that workers go home after every shift to their families safe and sound. That's my message, Keith.
Great. Thank you, Stan. Just a few updates here on my end. So Oregon 22 was the last couple of weeks down in Eugene. This is the World Athletic Championships. Oregon was honored to host the first World Track and Field Championships ever in the United States. And it was great to see so many world-class athletes coming through PDX. Over the course of 10 days, nearly 150,000 tickets were purchased from fans from all 50 states and 40 countries. Terminal 2, lot going on at Terminal 2. We had congressional leaders out there last week, along with the Port, Hacienda Community Development Corporation, and members of the Oregon Mass Timber Coalition to really showcase all that's happening at Terminal 2. Congresswoman Bonamici was there, along with two of her House colleagues on the Select Committee on the Climate Crisis. They were making a tour through various projects in Oregon. This gave us a chance to really showcase the pending EDA decision, Economic Development Administration decision on the Build Back Better competition that Terminal 2 is one of about 60 applicants from around the country, and we're expecting news here in the next month. And this is to build a manufacturing center of excellence around mass timber manufacturing, with the centerpiece being housing. And so big time for this project and for this work. And it's really great to see Hacienda Community Development Corporation doing prototype work, which some of you will recall, they received $5 million from the Oregon legislature to do that work. That work is underway and happening right now at Terminal 2. The port again has been honored to be as Oregon's healthiest employer. This is the 4th year in a row we've had the honor of taking home this top spot by the Portland Business Journal, looking across Oregon and looking at both mental and physical health. Hats off to our HR team. This is all pretty near and dear to my heart, especially on the mental health side as the executive sponsor of the peer support employee resource group. But again, led by our HR team, we are, this is a big honor for us and for the organization. Travel and leisure, America's top 10 best domestic airports. We usually always win this. We're under serious construction. We almost won it again this year, came in a tight second behind the Savannah Hilton Head International Airport, but really a pretty remarkable story when you see all the construction activity happening at the terminal. And finally, the new Alderwood Cornfoot Columbia Employment Shuttle Service, better known as Access, is now underway, and this allows employees to get to the various employment hubs in and around the airport area. Just added good service offering and transportation options for folks. So with that, that concludes my report.
Thanks for that, Keith. Do we have any questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for motion and second for approval of the executive director's report.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll call for votes for and against the motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. We have a public comment today to separate individuals. Michael McTurnan, a resident of Hillsborough, is joining us on Teams to provide comments. Okay, maybe while we wait for him, Mr. Jolie, I understand you have comments you wanted to provide.
You want me to come up here?
Yes, please.
I feel like I'm in a hot seat in this chair. Can you hear me all right? Am I on? There we go. First of all, it's really nice to be able to see people in person again, to be able to participate in this meeting. It's great to look at it on computer, but this feels great. This feels really good. And very quickly, the only thing that I'm really wanting to ask the commission is, and the port, as a concessionaire, we're trying to figure out where things are going to be in 23, 24, 25. We've got projections that we're trying to make. Years ago they said, well, we'll be back to 2019 numbers in 2025. Is that still the case? Just somehow, if we could get more feedback. I know the port has also lost some great statisticians, etc., but those statistics were so valuable. That tells us where things are going to go and how they're going to be, etc. And I think it will help in getting new concessionaires that want to know this information. So, and we're still down 40 employees, spending, so far we've spent about $35,000 on Indeed since 1st of January, trying to find people. It's really, really, really hard. We're losing money because often we aren't able to stay open as late as we need to, as late as we want to, and being able to offer the services that we are known for. It's frustrating. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming to talk to us. Keith, I don't know if you can speak to the statistics issue.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment, and perhaps what, we have been in the cadence throughout the pandemic to not only monitor very closely passenger counts, and we are still 20 to 25% behind where we were heading into the pandemic. And we can maybe get in these meetings, have Curtis speak a little more directly to those issues, because we are still very close to all of that and paying attention to not only how we're doing, but what's happening on air service capacity. When do we know we'll have more airline capacity coming into PDX? And I will say that spring of next year is a pivotal time for kind of reinstating a lot of the air service that we felt like has been lost, both international as well as domestic. So that's a good comment, and we can perhaps add a little bit more to the executive director report going forward.
Commissioner Holleran.
I just wanted to say thank you for your comments, and I think thank you for remaining here through a lot of turmoil, that variables that you could not have foreseen or predicted, the pandemic, and now obviously construction is a different challenge, but hopefully we're seeing passenger volumes go up, and that brings more people. When I travel, I definitely try to come see your operations, but you do a great job, and obviously having predictability so you can plan is a key part of success. And I think that, obviously we'll be working with the executive team to give you as much of that as is humanly possible for the variables that we can foresee and control. So thank you for your comment.
Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Christian Jolie, and I just want to say thank you for your strong partnership with the port, and I'm confident there's opportunities for the port to work with small businesses to find to help to support future business sense to make sense for your operations as small businesses and also for the port. So thank you. I just want to acknowledge that.
I agree. I think it's important for us to acknowledge that the winning of the Best Airport Award, whether we came in second this year or first as we have for many, is due in large part to our partners, concessionaires, as well as their employees. And so anything we can do to assist you guys in making our airport experience a good one, I think is important. Thank you for your testimony.
I'd like to add one more comment, but again, like the rest of my commissioners, thank you for sticking with the port and being part of what's been a roller coaster, very difficult.
We did not close, ever.
We really appreciate that, and we appreciate that of all our partners, concessionaires. I know there was a discussion at the commission meeting. I was 2 commission meetings ago in terms of beefing up the analytics capability, and I suspect that will go a long way to providing the kind of visibility that you're looking for. And maybe Antoinette or Bobby or Keith wants to add to that.
Yeah, no, I'll just reinforce what I said earlier. I do think we are doing a lot in this space, and we just need to bring it forward and communicate it more clearly.
Thank you for that discussion. I'll pause again just to make sure Mr. McTurnan hasn't joined. Okay, well, we will welcome his comment at our next meeting if he's available. I'll call on Dan Pippinger to introduce the first agenda item.
Good morning, Commissioners. This item is to request approval of an intergovernmental agreement between the Port of Portland and the City of Portland, the Bureau of Environmental Services. This is all about the replacement of a sanitary sewer pump station that's well beyond its useful life, and that we will turn over to the city to operate, but it needs to be rebuilt and brought up to standards. And the best way to do that is have PES do the work so that it meets their standard. Here to introduce the item is Terry Burke, the manager of aviation capital for the port.
Good morning, everyone. Next slide. So, next slide. Thank you. So I'm here today to seek approval for an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Portland Bureau of Environmental Services for the design and construction of the replacement Alderwood pump station in the amount of $8,420,000. Next slide. The Alderwood pump station is located along Northeast Alderwood Road and is a sanitary pump station that services the maintenance facility, the maintenance annex, Sky Chef, as well as a FAA administration building. The pump station is owned by the port, but is maintained and operated by Bureau of Environmental Services. As Dan mentioned, the pump station is in poor repair. It was built in 1980 and is 42 years old. Is continuing to have increased maintenance issues, as well as concerns about the condition of the pump station and risk to failure. BES has expressed an interest in assuming ownership of the pump station. So we've been working with them on a replacement project for this. One of the conditions of transfer of ownership for BES is that the pump station meets BES standards. Therefore, it was agreed that the best path forward was to have BES design and construct the pump station to ensure that it meets their standards so that we have the option to transfer ownership in the future. The intergovernmental agreement sets out the obligations of BES to develop and implement the project, the port's funding obligation for the project, payment terms and conditions for the design and construction. It also grants port review and comment opportunities on the project, schedule duration for activities, and the option to transfer the pump station ownership to BES after project completion. Next slide. So we're here today to seek approval of the intergovernmental agreement. If approved, the project will move into preliminary design, including site selection, and that would go through March of 2023. The design would be from April 23 through January of 24. Then the construction project would be bid, and we anticipate construction to start in April of 24 and go through about August of 25. Next slide. So budget and funding, as noted, the intergovernmental agreement for BES to design and construct the pump station is for $8,420,000. Port staff time is estimated at $366,600. A port contingency at $564,400 for a total project budget of $9,351,000. The funding source for the project is 67% airline cost center and 33% port cost center. As noted, this is a city design and construction, and they've set small business participation goals of 34% for professional, technical, and engineering contracts and 20% for construction contracts. Next slide. So today, staff asks approval for the executive director recommendation.
Thank you very much. Any questions on this item? Commissioner Alexander.
If we could go back just one slide, and it was not so much a question, but typically the ratio of contingency to overall budget seems to be a little large. That seems to be a very modest amount. Is there any reason that it is so?
So the City of Portland is carrying their own contingency on the project. So they have various allowances in their construction budget for unknowns, escalation, that sort of thing, as well as they're carrying an overall 10% contingency. So we're carrying a fairly modest contingency because of what's already in the City of Portland's.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So does that mean that the amount here is just a portion of the construction cost? In other words, the city is carrying a piece of it?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Is the city carrying a portion of the construction cost?
Correct. Yeah, they have some contingency on their construction cost as well as an overall contingency for their portion of the project. So, yeah.
Other questions, Commissioner Holler?
I would just say thank you. This is not something we want to have fail.
We agree.
And I, actually, I think it sounds like a pretty good deal. I mean, we, invest in it, get it all working, and then we're, goodbye. So, and they take care of it. So kudos to you for the partnership and the intergovernmental agreement. Those are not always easy, but I'm fully supportive. And unless there are other questions, I move that we approve the recommendation.
I do have a question.
Please go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you. I was just curious because it makes perfect sense to me, and thank you for working through this. I agree, we don't want this to fail, and it's probably not our prime objective to operate these kinds of facilities. But I was curious about it looks like the intent to sell, and if you could just comment quickly on. I understand we don't want to operate, but in terms of selling the facility and just a brief statement on kind of the perceived benefits or drawbacks, or maybe even the scheduled time frame for when we think that transfer would occur. Thank you.
Right. So, as mentioned, there's an option to transfer ownership to the city after construction. So that would occur after construction and the pump station was accepted. I think the primary benefits is that, as Commissioner O'Halloran mentioned, we're not necessarily in the business of operating these kind of public facilities, and then long-term responsibility on O&M is transferred to the city where it better lies.
Thank you.
This is Katie. I also have a question. I'm just wondering, is this the only pump station that the port currently owns? Is there anything else in our portfolio?
So this is one of 2 pump stations that the port owns and the city operates and maintains. There's another one on the Oregon Air National Guard base. And then we do have some pump stations on the airfield that is used to pump into our system and ultimately to these kind of public systems.
Any other questions?
Is there an intent then that these other pump stations would follow suit at a natural point of reconstruction?
There is discussion about potentially the one on the Oregon Air National Guard base, but the other pump stations are smack dab in the middle of the airfield operations areas. So those we would not want to transfer. And also they go to our own private system.
Thank you for the questions and discussion. I want to make sure we've answered them, had questions answered before we move to a motion. Okay, I think we have a motion from Commissioner O'Halloran. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for votes for and against the motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. I'll call on Vince Granado to introduce the last agenda item for today.
This is not Lori Lamro, who's joining me. Lori has illness, so couldn't make it in today. So Chris is going to pinch hit on this item for operational readiness and testing. And this is, again, related to the Terminal Core project. And it's really more around the operation. And we're not far away from actually opening the building, which is hard for me to believe that we're about 20 months or so to be ready to open 400,000 square feet of tenant improvements. Right now, we're in the process of moving the roof modules, which are going well. And the next couple of weeks, we'll start that very first roof module. But right now, we've been setting columns and so on. But by the time we get to the end of the year, it's time to start building out everything that goes on underneath that. And it will be very complicated. So we have done what we call the ORAT, Operational Readiness and Testing, before, but we've done just little bits of it. We did it for the rental car center opening when we opened the communications center. And what that is really around not just the commissioning of the systems to make sure they work, but actually using them. And so we'll be partnering with the airlines, the concessionaires to actually test the systems before they actually go live so that we're ready to go when that building opens. So we have contracted with and done an RFP to help to find a company to help us with that. This is an industry best practice. So I'm going to let Christopher go through the rest of the specific item.
Yep. So let's see. I think, can you guys hear me? Yes, there it is. Good morning. I'm Christopher Neal. So I am seeking approval for personal services for a contract with AirUp for operational readiness and airport transfer in the amount of $2.5 million. So Vince already talked a little bit about what it is. I like to dumb it down and think about the fact that on Saturday, I have a neighborhood cookout at my house. So over the last few weeks, some of you may have done this. Feel free to raise your hand so I'm not by myself. Invite little groups of people over to make sure that I've got everything prepped for the big event, if you will. Whether that's kids throwing up on the floor and I need to have additional paper towels, something like that. That's my version of what ORAD is. Vince's version is much more better for this commission presentation. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide here. Before I go into some of the work scope events, essentially like Vince mentioned, this is pressurizing the system in advance. So that way some of those things that happen, that always happen when you cut the ribbon on something brand new, happen beforehand, and we know how to fix them and mitigate them before we cut the ribbon on the new airport. So here's a couple bullet points that I just wanted to highlight. Number one, mitigation and contingency plans. We're doing a ton of this stuff right now when we're talking about putting up the columns and putting up the roof cassettes, etc. What happens if a ticket counter doesn't open on time? What happens if a concessions store isn't available on time? What's our plan B going to do? Or what's our plan B going to be, if you will? That's what a lot of this ORAD is going to be about. If anything, it's probably the number one thing that we're paying attention to. The second one, tracking and reporting progress. So as we are going through some of the airlines or the ticket counters, or we're going through concessions and things like that, as we learn about one, we will take that learning and apply it to the next one. So then by the time that we're done, and I'll pull up the schedule later, we would have been able to use all those lessons learned from one airline to the next, one concessions to the next, one tenant, one stakeholder, etc., from the first all the way to the end. The third one, familiarization activities. This is one that's going to take a lot of time and resources. So, for example, fire life safety, when it comes to things like evacuation routes, if you will, for fire, for police. Those routes are all going to change significantly. They're already changing now. So running fire, running police, etc., through those new routes, so that way when we cut the ribbon in 25, they know what to do and where to go once we open up the brand new building. And then lastly, it's not on the list, but it's lessons learned. So at the end, Vince mentioned a little bit about this earlier. In some of the other buildings that we've opened, we've done these small ORAT components. We've been calling them ORAT Light, if you will. We don't want to continue ORAT light when it comes to T-Core. We want to make sure that we invest in it all the way. That's why this is 2.5. Once we have the lessons learned, then we'll also put that forward to all other projects that we're doing within the port, not just T-Core. So at the end of this, what we're expecting is a report, if you will, from ARUP that just gathers all the lessons learned and the things that we've done throughout this process with them. We can go to the next slide, which is the schedule. About 18 months or so, you can see where we started the consultant selection there. It goes through about 6 different phases, whether we're defining the program, we're actually putting together all the different deliverables, as I talked about the airlines and the tenants and stakeholders, et cetera. All those things will all be detailed out, and then we'll work through it all the way to the end of spring of 24, when we open up T-Core. We can go to the next slide, talking about the budget. Okay, so the budget will come from T-Core, and you can see the details there on which cost center. I'm very proud also to say that we've set a small business goal. Kim is behind me, so I know she's clapping, of 25%. Specifically, what they've done is just hired out a lot of work to a smaller company to do a lot of the things that I've outlined here today. So we're proud of that as well. Next slide, I think that's it. So we are here looking for the approval of the 2.5 to ARUP for ORAT services. Questions for Vince?
I have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Please go ahead, Commissioner.
Yes, I have a question. First of all, thanks for the thoughtfulness in preparing for this, because honestly, there isn't more important work than change management, certainly with something this complex, and this kind of thoughtfulness is what continues to get the high ratings for the Port of Portland, right? To make sure that the experience is seamless. So kudos to the team. And so my question really is, given the importance of this work, I was just curious whether the port has previous experience in working with ARUP in this type of work before, and that was a good experience. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So essentially, well, not essentially, ARUP is actually doing a lot of our modeling for ORAT as well as for the airport going forward. So passenger traffic, where we determine where escalators, elevators, things like that are going to be, how big the checkpoint is going to be, how we'll process through the ticket counters. They've been doing that for us now for a while. So yes, specifically on ORAT, clearly we've looked at a lot of the work that they've done in other areas, but the relationship that we already have, and like I mentioned, the modeling, they know where people are going and where they're coming from and how they move throughout the airport. I'm very confident in the work that they're going to be doing for us starting soon.
Thank you.
I have a question that's similar, which is just about, given the scope here, which is significantly bigger than the work they've done for us before, have they done this similar work for other airports?
Yes, ma'am. And so in the proposal, yeah, they outlined multiple different airports, LA, Seattle, et cetera, that they've done a lot of this work for.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions from the commission?
I just want to ask, this contract of 2.49, I mean, almost 2.5 million, is that cover just for phase 1?
No, ma'am. It covers all of it.
Okay.
All of it.
Okay. And it's billed by the hour and not to exceed that amount.
There's a not to exceed 100%. I should have said that maybe earlier. Not to
Great.
exceed. You're right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a motion and second to approve the executive director's recommendation.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Thank you. The motion carries. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.